Beef Wellington is a little bit of like a culinary dinosaur, but it's still fully badass. Beef Wellington has been a sort of interesting journey in my life, like mostly because I did it for my first episode of Reverse Engineering. What is Beef Wellington? Like, I can't friggin' remember what Beef Wellington is. It's just like a name that I know. Ugh. So anyway, that was recreating Gordon Ramsay's Beef Wellington. We were doing this package for our April print issue of Bon Appetit, all about 1971 and just sort of what a huge year it was 50 years ago in food. And Beef Wellington was kind of like one of those archetypal dishes that was on the menu of a lot of fancy restaurants. I just want to kind of make it ours, you know? I know you can do this recipe. Like, this is like completely no big deal. That said, enough talking. We're gonna start by sort of chopping up this bacon. I kind of want it to disappear into the mushroom mixture. So shallots, a very fine dice on these shallots. But we just need to give this a little bit of a head start. That's probably gonna go for like, I don't know, 6 to 8 minutes. Oh, this is a mix of cremini and shiitake. Shiitakes, you have to take the kind of the whole stem off. With creminis, you only really need to trim the end. All right, so we're doing a little hand chop. You want a pound of mushrooms total. You can frankly use kind of anything. 1 pound of creminis, that would be totally fine, or 1 pound of shiitakes. Here's the thing, you really don't need to wash your mushrooms. Wet mushrooms don't brown, they get slimy instantly. Yeah, is there a little bit of dirt on there? It's sterilized, okay? It's not gonna kill you. Like, moisture is undeniably the enemy with this dish, you know, because it's gonna work against your pastry. It's gonna get it all kind of soggy. So shallots are going in. Oh, and we gotta do our maitakes too. It like manages to bring umami flavors in way in excess of any other mushroom. Andy is such a fusspot about garlic. He wants like hard-neck garlic from the farmer's market, like in fall on like a crisp 62-degree day. So normally I don't mince garlic, but in this case, like it's kind of nice to have that garlic kind of disappear into your mixture and not like have like a big, you know, sort of sliced piece. So garlic is going in there now. So we're just building flavor, all right? So just kind of want to like nestle the thyme down into the fat there. Make sure it's like getting contact with everything. So we're ready to put the mushrooms in. We just want to cook them down, get them to release their water and concentrate. So it becomes kind of like mushroom jam. It's gonna be dynamite. All right, so this has been going a good like 10 minutes or so. We're at the point where enough water has been driven out of the mushrooms that they're actually kind of starting to brown against the skillet. I'm seasoning with a good bit of black pepper. You know, let's get these out of here. These have served their purpose. Soy sauce, you know, you're not gonna taste it in here, but it's just gonna amp up the overall kind of umami flavors going on between the bacon, the cooked down mushrooms. It's just adding a little bit extra oomph. There is so much flavor in there. It's shocking. So I'm putting this into a quarter sheet. We want everything to be nice and cold. 30 minutes on the mushrooms, just until it's cold. That's gonna help keep the pastry from leaching out any fat and help it get crispy. So same thing with the meat. We're gonna sear it, but we're not trying to make it hot. We just wanna build a little flavor on the outside. A lot of salt and pepper on the outside of this meat. So this is a tied piece of filet mignon. So the eye round is another, you know, cut of beef that's kind of like roughly this size, not as expensive. Also quite good. Tying it, you know, which is something your butcher can do, just ensures that it kind of stays cylindrical and helps set that shape when it goes into the skillet. You need something that's gonna fit in that package really well. And tenderloin just fits the bill, literally. Very hot skillet. We're just doing a few total minutes of browning. We're not trying to cook the meat. We're just trying to kind of get a little color on the exterior and build a little flavor. That's it. Yeah, so the first version of Beef Wellington that I did in recreating Gordon's dish, I did not sear it. I want to get this pretty tight. Searing it is pretty key, but you know, This is the thing, like when I first tried, you know, the first version of Gordon Ramsay's Beef Wellington, like I don't even know that I'd ever eaten Beef Wellington. You know, it's just one of those dishes like you've heard of, but it's just like, well, what is it? Like lobster thermidor, it's like, what the f is that? Okay, seared. I'm gonna throw this in the fridge now just because I wanna cool it right back down. Again, this is not about cooking the interior of the meat. This is just to kind of lightly brown the exterior, build that flavor we were talking about. Okay, so next we're gonna do puff pastry. Like, here's the deal. Nobody makes their own puff pastry. You can get such good puff pastry, you know, pre-made. There's no reason to make it yourself unless you really just are wandering around looking for a project. If I roll this out, I'm worried it's gonna be a little bit thin, but if I stack them and roll them together, then I think it'll work out. They're not like entirely sticking together, but I still feel good enough about it to keep going. So we're gonna call that 14, and we're gonna call that 13. Oh my God. Okay, I think we're like pretty much bang on. The little ruler that could. So we just wanna keep this cold while we wait for the mushrooms to finish cooling. We've got like maybe 10 or so minutes that we need to let these things cool down, and then we can assemble. Okay, so beef is cool to the touch and good to go. I need to get the strings off of the beef. If it doesn't come tied, you don't need to tie it yourself. It's really not necessary. And frankly, I mean, it's a little fussy. So I want to spread the cooled mushroom mixture. I'm gonna keep a nice clear border because I want this to go all the way around the meat. Now, before I place it on top, we're gonna take a tablespoon of Dijon mustard and we're going to brush it all over the outside of the tenderloin. It adds just a ton of flavor and it also adds a little pop of acidity. And then we're gonna do our egg wash. I feel like in a video where I cracked an egg one-handed, and I don't know who edited the video, but I feel like they took it out. It always just feels a little bit intense when you start doing this, you know, but it's gonna be fine. Okay, so we're going up and over. I'm just gonna use a little bit of this egg wash to seal this side. It's never gonna be a perfect seal, like we're always gonna have some liquid that's gonna wanna kinda come out. So I'm gonna turn it over. And Gordon did this like really beautifully. I will do it much less beautifully. He just twisted the ends to seal it and then trimmed off the excess like that. There we go, no big deal. This is gonna chill in the fridge for about an hour. You just wanna make sure everything goes into the oven cold. Looking pretty good. There's our Wellington, nicely chilled. Just gonna do a little bit of egg wash on this. You wanna egg wash first and do slits later because the egg wash can just kind of seal them back up. If you make big cuts, big openings in the pastry is gonna shrink as it loses moisture during the cooking process, and they're gonna really open up. And if you make like big slashes, the whole thing's just gonna kind of flap open. So less is more. Okay, cool. So Wellington going into a 425-degree oven. The magic number in terms of our internal target temperature for the beef is 115. Hopefully we'll take around 40 minutes or so. So the thing about Gordon Ramsay's Beef Wellington, they serve the Wellington with a sort of like, call it like a red wine jus, red wine reduction. I much prefer having something that's like very like bright. To that end, I did, you know, kind of like I'm just calling it green sauce. I'm just gonna take a few anchovies out of this tin. To me, they are the bacon of the sea. I'm gonna use half of this garlic clove. We need 2/3 of a cup of olive oil. I mean, you wouldn't wanna like make margaritas for, you know, 100 people with this, you know, technique, but Works just fine. And then I'm just gonna take, you know, the sort of the tougher stems off of my herbs. I'm using a combination here of parsley and cilantro. Parsley has that like ability to just like cut through everything, you know, whereas cilantro to me is a little bit more dynamic. 2 teaspoons of Dijon mustard. That's gonna help give our sauce a little bit of body. I'm just gonna whiz this up a little bit before putting the herbs in there. I'm just gonna add our herbs. Let's get some more salt in there. Mr. Pepper. What I love about this sauce is just that it takes like 0 time and you get so much flavor and you get something that's a counterweight to the richness, you know, at least of this dish, you know, and potentially of other dishes as well. Okay, so it's been more like 45 minutes, but I had to drop the temperature of the oven slightly just because we were getting quite a bit of color. Let's see. You know what, I'm gonna pull it out now. We're looking for a 115, still slightly under in the very center, but I think it's gonna all even out. Real talk, not sponsored, okay? Thermapen MK4 thermometer. If you wanna like do a solid for somebody you love who cooks, this is like better than a knife, better than like, you know, a new skillet. It's the best thermometer ever. The reason I'm transferring it, because right now it's crispy all the way around, and I want to preserve as much of that crispiness as possible. So we haven't really lost much liquid at all, which is great. Let's let it rest like a good 10 minutes. So I feel really good about the cook on this, and yeah, we're going for it, okay? Then like our green sauce, you know, it's not about being precious about it. Just like get it on there. I think having, you know, that bright pop of sauce like really kind of sets us apart. I mean, it keeps it from being too solidly in the realm of like, you know, a kind of classic version. But I think the Wellington itself, you know, if you wanted to do that kind of like, you know, like a demi-glace or some other kind of sauce, I mean, feel free to absolutely do that. But I don't know, to me, like this just provides that kind of, that counterbalance, you know? It's just like literally like the fullest possible spectrum of flavor possible, where you have like that bright sauce that like really pops, and then the intensity of the Wellington. I just think they go together so well. Even though, you know, it was big in the 70s, I don't know, like bell bottoms came back, right? I don't know, I mean, Dan was threatening to, you know, to grade me, but I think we like crushed it. Like honestly, it's so good. Like the color, you know, the cook on the meat, the mushroom mixture, the flavors, like it's all kind of happening here. And I think we're in solid B+ territory, if not even better. And Tim, I need you to take this big old chunk of Wellington home. If you can do that for me, just nod the camera up and down. All right. As you earned it, buddy.